what do you get when you mix money, privilege, and a spot in Formula One? Lance Stroll. Lance Stroll is a name that makes Formula One fans do a double take. Some people can't stand him, while others think he just needs a chance to show off what he can do. But why does everyone have such strong opinions about him? Well, it's not just one thing, it's a bunch of reasons all rolled into one. Is it fair to say that Lance Stroll is Formula One's most hated driver, or is there more to the story? Let's find out why so many fans can't stand the sight of him. Lance Stroll's journey to Formula One has always had people talking, but not always in a good way. Why? Because his entry wasn't just about talent, it was about money. Big money. Lance's dad, Lawrence Stroll, is a billionaire with a fortune of over $4 billion. Yes, that's billion with a B. And guess what? That money played a huge part in Lance making his way to F1. While other drivers were grinding their way up the racing ladder, scrimping and saving, Lance was being handed opportunities on a silver platter. The young racer got his first taste of the big leagues thanks to a hefty check from his father, which opened doors that many others could only dream of. This didn't sit too well with racing fans who felt Lance didn't earn his spot on the grid. He bought it. That's why people often call him a pay driver, a term used for racers who got into F1 not just for their skill, but because they have a rich backer.
What brand do you drive for?
Aston Martin.
Aston Martin. What's your name?
Lance Stroll.
How long you been in Formula One for?
A few years now.
But it's not just about the money. People started to see Lance as the classic, spoiled rich kid in the paddock. While other drivers were sweating it out, putting in the hours, Lance's reputation grew as someone who had everything handed to him.
It doesn't really matter or not if you deserve to be here. A lot of people deserve to be here. Some don't deserve to be here. That's life.
And you can't ignore the interviews where he'd actually laugh off his status as a pay driver. It's almost like he didn't get why people were upset. One of his most famous quotes was about his super license, saying, "I don't care what people say. I know I'm here because I earned it." But for many fans, the idea that he earned his seat was laughable. When they think of Lance, they think of his father's wallet, not his racing prowess. Now, let's face it, having a billionaire dad might not sound so bad, but when you see the effort others put in just to get a shot and compare it to Lance's rapid rise, it's easy to see why people are so frustrated. The belief that F1 should be about the best drivers rather than the ones who can pay the most has only fueled this dislike, and that's just the beginning. Lance's story gets even wilder when we look at his racing career itself, with moments that make fans roll their eyes and call him the accident magnet. More on that in the next part. The reputation of an accident magnet. Lance Stroll's career in Formula One has been marked by many defining moments, but not the kind most drivers would want. While some drivers gain praise for their speed, skill, and strategic mind, Stroll's reputation has been shaped by a troubling pattern of crashes and incidents that have earned him the nickname accident magnet. But what is it that makes these high-profile moments so memorable and criticized? One of the earliest moments that set the stage for his reputation came in 2020 during the Portuguese Grand Prix. Stroll, racing for Racing Point, now Aston Martin, was competing against some of the top drivers out on the track, including Max Verstappen. What happened next was a shock to many fans and analysts alike. Stroll collided with Verstappen, creating chaos and leaving the racing world with a lot of questions. It wasn't just a random mishap either. It was a collision that made people wonder whether he had control over his car or if he was simply in over his head.
As effective as Max wants it.
Oh no,
no, they're going to crash! And they have!
Ben, is this guy blind? What the is wrong with him? What a...
This incident was just the beginning of a long list of crashes that made him infamous. Fast forward to 2021 during the Hungarian Grand Prix. This time, Stroll was involved in a crash that would shake up the race in a big way.
And there's Lando Norris touched and into each other goes Valtteri Bottas and Sergio Perez, and that's the Alfa Romeo and AlphaTauri getting caught up as the McLaren spun round with the Ferrari as well.
In the early laps, he made contact with Charles Leclerc and Daniel Ricciardo, sparking a chain reaction that took out multiple cars and left many drivers fuming.
Lance Stroll, just arriving far too quickly into the scene. It's a red flag. We are stopping this race.
The impact wasn't just physical, it also drew fierce criticism from fans and analysts who saw it as yet another example of Stroll's inability to avoid risky situations.
While the marshals can clear the debris, the damage you can see on car number 33.
Yeah, it was just really tricky, very slippery, and I tried to avoid the cars in front of me, and it was a disaster.
It felt like deja vu for those who had watched his past races. Was this just bad luck, or was it a sign that his driving was more reckless than skillful? The answer was clear to many. Stroll was too often in the wrong place at the wrong time, and it was starting to make people question his place in the sport. Then came the 2022 Australian Grand Prix, a race that further reinforced Stroll's reputation as an accident-prone driver. In this event, Stroll collided with Nicholas Latifi, leading to a crash that brought out the red flag and ended any chance of good results for both drivers.
Run out of time, and there once again the Williams of Nicholas Latifi. Well, Lance Stroll, now he has, look on the right-hand side, look at his front right there.
This incident wasn't a small mistake. It was another glaring moment that highlighted his tendency to make poor decisions when the pressure was on. The crash was widely seen as avoidable, and that's what fueled the growing perception that Stroll's errors weren't just isolated cases. They were a repeating theme. What makes these incidents even more frustrating is the way they affect not just Stroll, but also his team. Every crash or mistake means more damage to the car, more time spent in the garage, and more missed opportunities for points. Aston Martin, like any team, wants to see their drivers bring home results, not damage. And while Stroll had his moments of showing promise, like a few strong qualifying performances or brief flashes of speed, these were overshadowed by his frequent crashes. Stroll's pattern of mistakes has cemented him as someone fans roll their eyes at when they hear his name. It's no longer just about a single bad day or a freak accident. It's the idea that he makes the same mistakes over and over again with little sign of learning or improvement. It's why, in the eyes of many, Stroll will always be that accident magnet, the driver whose career seems defined by what happens when he's on the track for all the wrong reasons. Arrogant attitude and spoiled behavior. Lance Stroll's reputation in Formula 1 is shaped by more than just his racing skills. It's also about how he behaves. Whether it's losing his temper in high-stress moments or acting entitled off the track, Stroll often frustrates fans. Many see him as a spoiled rich kid who lacks maturity. This perception is built on the series of moments that show a lack of control and professionalism. One of the most talked about incidents was at the 2023 Qatar Grand Prix. Stroll failed to make it past Q2 and was unable to qualify for the top 10. After the session had ended, he lost his temper and threw his $50,000 steering wheel out of the car. Cameras captured the scene and fans were shocked. It wasn't just a disappointment, it was childish behavior. Other drivers maintain their composure even when things don't go their way, but Stroll's outburst seemed excessive and immature. It made it hard for people to see him as a serious driver. But Stroll's temper isn't just limited to the track. Reports of his behavior off the track paint a similar picture as well. One story that stands out is about an incident with his trainer. Stroll was said to have shoved his trainer after a tough session. This incident showed a side of him that many fans find hard to accept. It looked like someone who wanted things his way and couldn't handle it if they didn't go as planned. When compared to other F1 drivers, Stroll's reactions seem even worse. Drivers like Lewis Hamilton, Max Verstappen, and Lando Norris show that they can be competitive and still stay composed. Hamilton is known for staying calm even under pressure. Verstappen, despite his aggressive racing, has learned to keep his emotions in check. Norris, even as a younger driver, handles setbacks very maturely. Stroll, on the other hand, though, reacts in ways that seem out of place. This only reinforces the image of him as the entitled rich kid in the paddock. This matters because fans expect more than just speed. They want to see drivers who show maturity and sportsmanship. Stroll's outbursts make it hard for fans to respect him. They see him as someone who never really had to fight for his spot in the sport. This adds to the idea that he's only there because of his father's money. Fans want to see drivers who respect the sport and the people in it, but Stroll's behavior makes it hard for them to do that. One of the biggest criticisms fans have of him is his refusal to take responsibility for his mistakes. Instead of owning up to errors, Stroll often deflects blame. One moment that perfectly illustrates this tendency was during the 2021 Hungarian Grand Prix. Stroll was involved in a chaotic start where he collided with other drivers, including Charles Leclerc and Daniel Ricciardo. It was a major incident that impacted multiple cars and set the tone for a difficult race.
I gave him plenty of room.
We saw, mate. Get going. Get going. Get going.
Fucking hit me.
Yeah, we saw.
Check damage.
Yeah, we're checking.
When asked about what happened in post-race interviews, Stroll shifted the blame to others, saying that he had no choice in the matter.
The car in front of me just stopped right in front of me. I had nowhere to go. And yeah, it was just one of those really weird racing incidents.
He pointed fingers at Ricciardo, suggesting that the collision wasn't his fault. This type of response did little to earn him respect amongst fans and drivers alike, and instead of owning up to the role he played in the crash, Stroll acted as if it was entirely out of his hands. This pattern continued with other incidents as well. During the 2022 Australian Grand Prix, Stroll was involved in a crash with Nicholas Latifi. After the race, instead of taking full responsibility, he seemed to downplay what happened.
We have a fast race car. I mean, we saw again in Canada. Our race pace was really good, and all throughout the whole season, I think we've been competitive in all different kinds of tracks, low speed, high speed. So yeah, looking forward to this weekend.
Fans and commentators noted that this approach showed a lack of maturity and self-awareness. This attitude is especially damaging because it not only affects just him, but his team in Aston Martin as well.
Yeah, really strange. As soon as I touched the brakes, I just had a huge rear lock, and then I was a passenger from there. So I've never felt that in the car. So maybe there was a brake failure problem. We have to look into it.
You and Fernando both looking quick in the wet qualifying session earlier today, so what do you think would have been possible in today's race?
It's a shame in a race like this, anything's possible, so to be out on lap one really sucks, but we have to look into what happened.
When drivers take responsibility for their mistakes, it sets a standard of accountability. Stroll's lack of it only makes it harder for the team to maintain that standard. And while Stroll may have a father with deep pockets, his racing career can't be sustained on money alone. If he continues to deflect blame, show no humility, and fail to take responsibility, he risks losing more than just fan support. He could lose his seat in Formula 1 altogether. Struggles against teammates. Lance Stroll's entry into Formula 1 was anything but ordinary. He first joined the sport in 2017, racing for Williams, a team with a storied history but struggling performance. His rookie year was marked by a mix of rookie mistakes and flashes of talent, including a memorable podium finish at the 2017 Azerbaijan Grand Prix. But it wasn't long before critics began to question his place in Formula 1. In 2019, Stroll's career took a significant turn when he made the move to Racing Point, a team that was heavily backed by his father, Lawrence Stroll, through the Stroll family's investment group Yeetree Consortium. The move to Racing Point was viewed by many as a business decision rather than one driven by merit. While Stroll's financial backing was well known, it became a source of contention. Critics pointed out that his position at Racing Point, later renamed Aston Martin, was a result of his father's influence rather than his racing prowess. The first season at Racing Point saw Stroll battling against Sergio Perez, a driver known for his strategic mind and consistency out on the track. While Stroll occasionally showed promising pace, Perez's consistency and ability to extract every ounce of performance from the car were evident. Perez secured more points, often finishing races ahead of Stroll, and proved to be the standout driver for the team during that period. Stroll's performances, on the other hand, were often characterized by errors and a lack of racecraft that separated him from his more experienced teammate. Despite the occasional highlight, such as a well-executed qualifying run or a timely overtake, Stroll's overall performance could not match Perez's depth as a driver. 2021-22 season. Stroll's struggles against more experienced teammates continued when he was paired with Sebastian Vettel, a four-time world champion who had joined Racing Point in 2021. The comparison was stark. Vettel, even in the twilight of his career, demonstrated his signature speed, intelligence, and racecraft. His experience and skill were unmatched, and Stroll found himself consistently trailing behind. Throughout their 2 seasons as teammates, Stroll's performances were often described as frustratingly inconsistent. While Vettel showed his mastery by scoring points and even finishing on the podium, Stroll's performances were marked by mistakes, missed opportunities, and an inability to adapt to different racing conditions. This further reinforced the image of Stroll as a driver who simply couldn't match the standards of his more accomplished teammates. 2023 season through the Stroll-Alonso era. The arrival of Fernando Alonso in 2023 marked a new chapter for Aston Martin, bringing an aura of excitement and anticipation. Alonso, with his rich history in the sport, was expected to lift Aston Martin to new heights. What this move also did, however, was place an even brighter spotlight on Stroll's limitations. Alonso's introduction was an opportunity for Stroll to prove he could compete at a higher level. Unfortunately, the 2023 season showcased more of the same struggles. The Stroll-Alonso dynamic exposed a chasm in their racing abilities. While Alonso was consistently out-qualifying Stroll, securing better grid positions, and taking advantage of race strategy, Stroll's performances were erratic. Alonso's race pace was often significantly better, and he was seen making critical overtakes and handling difficult situations with poise. In contrast, Stroll continued to display issues with race awareness and consistency, leading to several underwhelming results. Consistent crashes and poor results. In 2023, Stroll was involved in more than one incident that highlighted his lack of control and judgment on the track. The Miami Grand Prix, for example, was a painful reminder of Stroll's difficulties. He collided with another driver early on in the race, costing his team critical points and leading to a race that was effectively over for him. Stroll's crashes were not isolated incidents either. They seemed to occur regularly throughout the season. This pattern added to the growing frustration amongst fans and commentators who hoped to see a more refined and competent Stroll. The race results painted an even clearer picture. While Alonso was scoring consistent points and occasionally challenging for podiums, Stroll was either finishing outside the points or struggling to match his teammates' pace. The gap between their performances suggested that Stroll was either unable or unwilling to push himself beyond a certain level, raising questions about his potential for improvement. Lance Stroll's journey in Formula 1 has been anything but simple. From the early whispers about his wealth playing a role in his career to the consistent struggles out on the track, his time in the sport has sparked debates and divided opinions. He's faced a stigma of being a pay driver, battled with teammates who outshine him, and been labeled the weak link in his team. Yet, he's still in the paddock, racing in a sport that is as unforgiving as it is prestigious. The question remains, can Stroll ever break free from the shadow of his privileged background? Is there a path for him to prove his critics wrong and become a driver known for his skill rather than the size of his bank account? Or will he forever be seen as the face of money over merit in Formula 1? The answer is as elusive as the podiums he's struggled to reach. But one thing is certain, the clock is ticking, and Formula 1 doesn't wait for anyone to catch up. What are your thoughts on Lance Stroll's career? Do you think he has what it takes to silence his doubters, or is the pay driver label one he'll never shake off? Share your views in the comments section down below. And if you enjoyed this deep dive into the world of F1, don't forget to subscribe for more stories and analysis.